Hi, I'm Spaceboy.
And I'm Surlana.
And you're listening to Spaceboy Universe
on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.
32 minutes, 21 seconds. 5-second tone followed by a 1-second pause.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Okay, gang, let's go.
From the space city called Houston, Texas, welcome to Spaceboy Universe, featuring Spaceboy and the lovely Surlana. So strap in and prepare for launch sequence.
Greetings and salutations. I'm Spaceboy, and across from me is the lovely Surlana, and this is Spaceboy Universe. It is December 1st, 2018, and we're on show number 3.10. And tonight we're going to be talking about recording technology. It should be a pretty interesting show tonight, and I think you'll enjoy. As always, follow us on Twitter. That's at the SBU Universe. Follow Surlana at Surlana. Follow me, and that is Spaceboy at Spaceboy Music. Make sure to hashtag your tweets tonight with hashtags SBU Universe and hashtag Space Cadets. In addition to Twitter, you can find us pretty much all over social media. Just search for Spaceboy Universe. Hey, Space Cadets, you'll want to check out the YouTube channel. Yeah, that's right. We do more than archive our shows there. There's video content from SB Music, video interviews, 2-Bit Gamers, and so much more. So hit that subscribe button and click that bell to be notified. I know this is just rolling your eyes, isn't it? And you will be notified when new content is available. Hey, can't catch a show live? No problemo. Take the SBU on the go with you via Spreaker, SoundCloud, and iTunes, and iHeartMedia, and Spotify. You know, I'm pausing for a second because I have a quote from a movie that, you know, I've got one job on this ship, and I'm going to do it. It's stupid, but I'm going to do it.
That's what I feel like.
Anyway, so on that magical note, let me bring in my eye-rolling co-host, Surlana. Hello.
Quote from one of the best movies of all time, Galaxy Quest.
So, yes, I have one job on this ship.
It's stupid, but I'm going to do it.
Yes.
And all she did was repeat the ship's computer.
Mm-hmm.
So, is this it? Are we starting?
Yeah, we've started. I've like introduced you so you could come on in.
Well, let's just dive into it. You go for it. You said you had things to talk about. If there's time, I might mention a few things. If there's not, then no loss.
There's two things I will start off with. And, you know, speaking of YouTube, Star Wars has a channel out there now.
Official?
It's kind of an official thing. It's like they've drudged up the kind of like the past shows of, or not drudged up, I mean, maybe it's kind of a poor choice. But anyway, they've got a new thing called Forces of Destiny. Supposedly it's aimed at kids like 3 to 5, but I don't recall ever seeing cartoons when I was 3 or even kind of remembering. But anyway, it's not too bad. It dives into some, it's like, think of, okay, this is a story that took place at a certain time, but it wasn't on the major films. Make sense, Surlana?
No.
Okay, in other words... like,
I'm lost when it comes to Star Wars.
Just think of it this way. You know, you have a story, right? Let's take a story. Give me a story that you've read that you've enjoyed.
Any story?
Any story that you've read that...
Pride and Prejudice.
Okay, so take Pride and Prejudice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so during the story of the Pride and Prejudice... Like there was a scene where one of the girls goes to the mall, and I know I'm joking here because Pride and Prejudice does take place in what
round about 1810, 1812.
Is that before or after the Victorian?
Before. Right before.
So anyway, take one of the characters and they go on an adventure like in the middle of that particular story, right?
Yeah, there's an offshoot.
Right. Yeah. So it was like, okay, but it kind of gives you a little bit more character development behind that character. Like, oh, okay, I see why she did that. Or, well, it's very similar with this Forces of Destiny. Okay. So that's what that's all about. And, I don't...
Thanks for putting it in a way I can understand.
Yeah, well, I tried. It's a learning experience. So, it's no secret that I'm not a big fan of The Last Jedi. But in these short takes that I've seen that
wasn't a commentary. I really coughed.
that are totally free on YouTube, they're actually good. They're PC free.
You mean political correctness free?
Yes, and so you're not being shoved down your gullet.
Social justice.
So it's enjoyable. So speaking of social justice, which leads me to Doctor Who. So the most recent episode, I've been trying to give Doctor Who
a chance.
Exactly, and
noble of you.
I'm paying for it. I watch it, and although there are times where the show is good, actually this show was pretty decent. This last one that I just saw, I had Alan Cumming in it. I can't remember what else he's been in, but he's fairly popular. Anyway, he played King James, and the problem with Jodie Whittaker is that she has no personality. She doesn't bring
any quirkiness or specific
like
quirks.
Tenet, you got the
something that she makes her own with that character.
Like when, for example, when there's a situation where she's kind of like, oh well, this comes up in the situation where King James refers to her as the assistant witch hunter general, and that another character on the show is actually the lead guy because he's a man. And you don't get that thing where, like, for example, when Tenet was being pushed back by a character, he would actually come out and be very expressive and force his way into a point where I don't give a rat's tail about what you're saying because I'm the doctor, I'm from Gallifrey and blah, 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 and you just, there is no razzmatazz when it comes to Jodie. And you get the sense that she's trying to mimic these former doctors, but it really falls short. So anyway, there you go.
That's it? That's all you... I mean, I thought the Star Wars thing was going to go on for a while.
No,
I was prepared to really kind of like
get
out the phone, look at,
the thing is with Star Wars is that I'm kind of tired of all the yelling and screaming about, I'm at the point when it comes to Star Wars is that I'm not going to give them my money,
I say I should have kept my mouth shut.
And so...
you even when you say you're done, there's still a lot of more content behind your...
Well, let me put it this way. I'm going to get the Disney streaming channel when it comes out. And
yeah, that'll show them.
And the fact is that I hated The Last Jedi. I'm angry over the fact of them pushing their agenda and being called a whiny baby, man baby, which I'm not. I'm trying to bring an intellectual conversation
like I said,
to a show that,
You think it's over. It's never over.
Well, there you go.
Why don't you have your own 30-minute podcast
Surlana,
about this?
You say this all the time.
Get it all out once and for all. I mean, like, just go for it.
So I'm not allowed to have banter.
But this is like the 37th time you said the same thing, babe. I'm sorry. I could probably go back for the last 2 months, every podcast, and in the first 20 minutes, there's the same Star Wars upset. Make a secondary SBU channel, call it the SBU Presents Star Wars Upset channel.
This is much different. What I'm saying is much different than the angry part. Is that I'm tired of the argument. I'm just at the point where I'm going to choose to hold back my money, and if they create another movie like Solo, well, then they're going to fill it at the box office.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be missing your
I think that there's
$10.
more than just myself that feels this way. And until they rectify the situation, the fans are going to put them in a pickle. And, I didn't even get, bring up Captain Marvel.
Okay,
so go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead.
It's fine.
You want to stop me from the Star Wars thing? Go
Well,
ahead.
I mean, if it's important and you got to get it out there, I don't want to be seen as the BITCH that stops you.
Well, you have stopped me, so go ahead and please continue.
Well, since we're kind of on a bummer topic, let me go ahead and get some sad news out of the way. It really is sad news. The creator of SpongeBob SquarePants, Steven Hillenburg, passed away this week on November 28th. He was only 57, but he had ALS. He had been diagnosed last March.
Who is he to our audience?
I just read the headline, babe. SpongeBob SquarePants creator Steven Hillenburg dies at 57.
Okay.
But he was a marine biologist, and somehow he went from there to being hired at Nickelodeon to work on Rocko's Modern Life when it was on the air, and he ended up creating SpongeBob SquarePants. Now, I happened to be digging around looking for the story, so I wanted to find out what day he passed and everything. And so I found a list of the top 9 best songs from SpongeBob SquarePants, the TV show. And I was going through them like, yeah, I remember that, the friendship song, the campfire song, blah, blah, blah. And, of course, the number one song they listed is from my favorite episode of all SpongeBob. It's called Band Geeks. And it was, the song is called The Winner Takes All. And it's the one they sing at the end of the episode that Squidward didn't know that they had been practicing it. And, and it's one of those rare episodes where Squidward comes out on top. He wins, gets what he wants. And that's unusual for a SpongeBob episode because usually he's, the straight guy that gets put down all the time. But I think I was really sad to hear this. And, I mean, the cultural significance of SpongeBob is up there, and I believe he's almost on par with Bugs Bunny at this point. So, I mean, he was like a breakout character and an animation. So, it cannot be understated the significance that Hillenburg has brought to the world. So, just wanted to put that out there. So, let's talk about gaming for a minute. I lived through the era of console wars, but I was not engaged in it because I didn't have one and I wasn't playing them. But I'd had a friend who had this, and I had a friend who had that. But I didn't realize that the war was mostly between Sega and Nintendo, and that there was a highly rated nonfiction book that was written about it called Console Wars, Sega, Nintendo, and the Battle That Defined a Generation. And, excuse me, I am trying to get a cough. Apparently, this is an account of the corporate wars behind your favorite gaming systems, and this book is very engaging, and it chronicles how Sega was this small, scrappy gaming company that led by a team of unlikelies, and rebels, and they took over took on the juggernaut that was Nintendo, and they helped revolutionize the gaming industry. So that book by Blake Harris is going to be somehow converted to a TV show. Maybe it's going to be a series or something. It's going to be adapted. And it's just going to be called Console Wars, Sega versus Nintendo and the Battle That Defined a Generation. So that might be interesting to see because my friend Holly, I think she had a Sega. I remember playing Sonic with her. That's about all I remember. And when she was growing up, she had an Atari, an original Atari with that fake wood 2600. And that was the only time I touched a different console other than my Odyssey. And then after that, I never touched another one until I got hooked up with you and you got a PlayStation 2. And that was it. But
Yeah, but when they talk about the console wars, it's more towards the late 90s.
Mm-hmm. Now, said this book is set during the 90s and focuses on the rise and fall of Tom Kalinske. Kalinske. He took on the role of CEO for Sega's American division and essentially saved the company with the release of Sega Genesis. It's a blistering business-based story that could definitely fit the 90s piece along with the lines of Halt and Catch Fire, if you're wondering. But so I'm going to be on the lookout for that. That might be interesting. So just wanted to put that out there. Now, something you and I have been, because you and I are in our late 40s, but we watch PewDiePie on YouTube. PewDiePie is maybe arguably the most subscribed individual YouTube channel. He's an individual, has a YouTube channel. Well, he has been battling this other YouTube channel that is more of a corporate conglomerate. It's called T-Series, and they're out of India. So we've been watching the numbers. I mean, they're both at 70 million subscribers. But a lot of people speculate that T-Series might be using some sort of underhanded, automated subscriber sign up. But I don't know if it's been proven. But here's what the latest thing is as of yesterday. Someone hacked printers worldwide, urging people to subscribe to PewDiePie. So the question is your printer secure? So the fight continues over the most subscribed channel on YouTube, and it spilled over into the real world a few months ago, where fans of PewDiePie, which is his real name is Felix Kjellberg, he's Swedish, but he lives in Brighton, England. So fans started campaigning to get Pewds more legitimate subscribers. It was a grassroots effort. It was in good fun, mostly, until people on social media reported being hacked by someone who's urging them to subscribe to PewDiePie. So he's been on top for maybe, the last 4 to 5 years. But T-Series is a channel owned by an Indian music production company, and their growth rate in 2018 has been explosive. Currently has over 72 million subscribers, placing it behind Shellberg around, it's a difference between 150,000 fans. So T-Series subscriber trajectory estimates that the channel will outgrow PewDiePie, but Shellberg and his fans are putting up a fight. So he actually released a diss track against them. Was that Bitch Lasagna? Yeah, that's he's sort of taking it tongue in cheek. I don't know how much he actually cares about it, because he does a lot of irony and things like that. So over the last couple of days, Twitter users have been posting screenshots from unsolicited printouts from internet-connected printers saying PewDiePie needs their help. PewDiePie, the currently most subscribed channel on YouTube, is at stake of losing its position as number one by an Indian company called T-Series that simply uploads videos of Bollywood trailers and campaigns. Printout tells people to subscribe to PewDiePie, tell everyone you know about the race. There's an ASCII figure of the bro fist gesture he makes at the end of most of his videos, and there's no specific origin. Users from Canada to the UK have received it. So I think it's kind of funny. I mean, for somebody to hack your stuff, I mean, this is like the most benign thing, you know. The worst, it's going to eat up your ink and you're going to lose a piece of paper that you can just turn over and start doodling on. But there's images where people have printouts by their computers that were hacked, and so I don't know. I think it's funny, but they took advantage of an open network port. So if you've got an open network port where your printer is connected to the internet, this can come through. So your printer has been exposed, trying to warn you how to close it. I don't know. I think it's funny. It's not. It just shows a malicious hacker. Sure, they could take advantage of that, but this is fairly harmless. Just trying to get you to subscribe to PewDiePie. But yeah, I just thought that was funny. I can't wait to see if he responds to this on his channel. Okay, I'm done.
So if I bring up another topic,
Yes, I will completely ignore you. Go right ahead.
Well, anyway, I ordered a new chair for the studio and through Amazon, and this was back on the 19th of November, and I found out that it was lost in transition, and which made me mad because I was looking forward to getting my chair. What?
Lost in transit?
Or lost in transit, transition, transit, kind of the same thing, I guess. So finally worked with Amazon the other day, and they refunded me the money, and I'm finally going to get my chair sometime, I guess, next week or something like that. So I'm excited about that. Sitting in the chair I'm currently in is not the most comfortable chair, and I need some comfort. So anyway, yeah, I was a little peeved by that. But then I thought, well, you know, it could have been from the fires out in California because it was coming from California. So anyway, that's my sad ordering story. But it did work out in the end. Amazon's been pretty good about things, about taking care of things. So
Really? I thought there was going to be a lot more to that. Because,
no, I'm trying to curb my anger behind the mic because I see that you think that I'm repeating too many things, and so...
No, babe, just Star Wars. Just Star Wars upsets. I mean, you could fit right in there with all these, I just call them Star Wars upset YouTube channels.
Well, so if I transition to the next topic here, Star Trek...
I'd be interested what you have to say about that.
Well, apparently there's a lot of things going on over at the CBS Palace, if you will, now that Moonbutt is gone. And, they're very concerned about the season 2 because, they don't have Mac money anymore for producing the show. Before, they had Netflix supporting the majority of the money behind them to produce the show. Well, they don't have Netflix anymore because Netflix wasn't going to be paying for what they paid last year or for the previous season. So, you got all that going on. And that comes straight from a YouTuber called Doomcock, which is...
I've seen it. Yeah, that's the actual name of the channel.
He supposedly, this is a guy that's dressed up with a mask and in this Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Heart Club Band jacket kind of thing going on, and he's like broadcast from somewhere in the middle of the earth. It's it is entertaining, and so apparently his sources have been telling him about the shakeup at CBS regarding Star Trek.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Were you watching something there on that channel where it said how Moonves tanked Star Trek because he didn't get it, he doesn't understand it, and he doesn't understand sci-fi?
That's part of it, yes.
That's part. Okay, that's where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Yay, I know something.
Yeah. See. Yeah. The reason that Enterprise got canceled was because of Les Moonves, and now that because he didn't know the difference between Star Trek and Star Wars. And that's pretty sad. How
can you be the CEO or whatever doohickey of a broadcast network and not know some basic crap like that?
Mm-hmm.
We should get to punch him in the face,
I think at some point, it's going to come down where CBS is going to start to have to sell assets because, they're, from what I've heard, is that they're not really financially stable. They have to get investors to come in to support their movies. Like, for example, the planned Star Trek 4 movie, from the J.J. Abrams universe.
Oh yeah,
the Kelvin timeline.
Kelvin.
Yeah, so they couldn't get the investors to pay for the salary increases for Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth because
Yeah, they're Marvel people now.
Well, Chris Hemsworth. Well, actually,
DC and Marvel.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth though is Thor money,
The War of Money.
Yeah, so
What do they need him for? He was the dad.
Yeah, well,
we don't need to explore that timeline.
They wanted to bring his dad back into it, and
There's so many characters. There's so many other directions they go. They have got me so uninterested in that timeline. They screwed me up so bad with that. That's why I don't even want to talk about Star Trek Discovery, or watch it. So they have broken my heart enough.
well,
Stop doing it.
if it's the JJ Robbie the bad robot team that has created that world, and in all fairness, the reason why it's all messed up like this is because of the licensing. There's, CBS owns the rights to the original, and Les Moonves issued a alternate copyright thing so that J.J. Abrams could go in and create Star Trek for the film, the big picture thing. Because when
Can he just go away? I mean, my gosh.
give it some more time, he'll be gone because of the accusations against him. Because of the Me Too movement.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that ought to kill it right there.
Yeah. Which is interesting because his wife is Julie Chen.
Yeah, she's likable, though.
Yeah.
People like her.
She's she hosts Big Brother. She's also on that
The Talk or whatever.
The Talk. It's like The View for CBS.
Yeah, it's like The View for people who aren't as militant.
So anyway, anything else?
Seemed like I did, but I didn't know. Seemed like I had an anecdote to tell you, but I didn't.
Yeah,
recall.
you're forgetting a lot. I need to get you some of that stuff that helps you remember. What is it?
Let me check my Facebook wall.
The gecko glow.
The what, baby?
Gecko glow glupin or whatever it's called. That helps you remember things.
Well, it's obviously you're not taking it because
it's not about me right now. It's all about you remembering things.
Yeah, that's the problem. I have a problem remembering things. No, that wasn't it. That wasn't it.
My sister's reporting that she quit The Talk.
Oh, Chin?
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably put her in an awkward situation with I think the other ladies were when the stuff hit the moon butt.
Well, when you talk about The Talk and The View, shows like that, I just cringe inside. I cannot.
Yeah, it's hard.
I'm a woman and I cannot do it. Now, I was talking to you earlier, like last week or something.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't finished the latest season of BoJack Horseman on Netflix, but earlier in the season, I did watch one that had to deal with like feminism and feminist topics, and I'm like, oh my goodness. You talk about being dead on the point. I don't know which episode it is, but if I figure out what the name of it is, but I'm like, you need to watch that one episode.
Who is I can't think of her name. Oh, Connie Chung is married to Maury Povich. Povich.
Yeah.
He's colorblind, and so he stopped wearing ties because
So he can't see what color the blood is when they start throwing things.
Anyway, it came up in our chat.
Well,
So
yeah. So, but it takes those shows like that. I feel like, okay, I know that those are those women's opinion, but somehow they manage to blow everything up and out of proportion to where you're an idiot. It's all your fault, somehow. But anyway, yeah, I'm not going to get started on that. I can't even watch it because I want to get a big cartoon hand glove and just line them up and smack them down the line.
it's difficult, especially Joy Behar. And then you've got Whoopi.
Whoopi, who I used to like because she was TNG. Mm-hmm. Even though I didn't understand her role there either.
That's why I always say your idols always disappoint.
Yeah, that's why I gave up having idols. I moved my idols to fictional works.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's the bottom of the hour, and we'll take our break, and we'll be right back after this.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana.
is author Jordan Root. You are listening to the Spaceboy Universe.
This is K28, and I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hi, y'all. This is Lori calling from Texas, and I love listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, this is Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange, and you're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
This is Wendy. I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
Hey, y'all. This is Lorelai DeLille. I listen to Spaceboy Universe. Don't you? Tell your mom and them I said hi.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
All right, one of our space cadets has a question out there from, who was it again from?
Goddess Michelle?
Yes, Miss Michelle. About the Nintendo Switch. Would I recommend it? It is a very cool device. What is nifty about it is you can plug it into the TV or you can take it with you and play it on the go.
But it it's a matter of how old is the person you're buying it for, what kind of games do they like, and what kind of games are offered on that platform.
Yeah, because
Nintendo's always been notoriously family-oriented, and that's not to say they don't have games like Doom 3.
So probably something I would recommend it for anybody like 12 or under.
Yeah, you want games that are a little bit more PG-13.
No, in all fairness, I play games that are 12 and under like that.
We still do because we're getting old.
And it's quite enjoyable. I just think that the Nintendo Switch is really cool. I don't personally own one, but the concept behind it. And so, it is what it is. So if you're thinking about doing it, yeah.
But if he's like into Call of Duty, Battlefield.
Hold on, let me address this. She asked about, or she says that he loves Zelda. Yes. If you like those classic games that Nintendo has put out, like Zelda and Mario-related games, this is the perfect spot-on game system for you. Mm-hmm. I think it just for us, we're more of Steam players.
Yeah, we're PC people.
PC gamers.
I just saw an article about Steam. I didn't bring it up because I didn't understand what they were talking about. So, anyway. So you're probably wondering what tonight's show is all about, and I just sort of threw it together in the last day and a half because I had the idea since Sunday of last week, but I just could not get to it till now. But what I'm interested in is how we've gone from the birth of humanity, and alongside us, music has developed alongside us. But as we've developed, we've created different technologies, and in these different technologies has affected music, not only how it's disseminated, but how you access it, and then ultimately share it. And it's just been an amazing journey because I have been there for the tail end of vinyl records, 8-tracks, definitely cassette tapes. I've lived through CDs, and I've lived through file sharing, the MP3 revolution, and now here we are, online streaming. And
although the topic tonight is recording technology, which could be applied to like the VHS, the Betamax, and Laserdisc in general, but we're focusing is more music tonight.
But what's interesting about that is the concerns and worries about that technology are exactly the same ones that they get upset about in music, is people want to get paid for their stuff. So, of course, we'll get in that. Now, just to let you know, when I was researching this and typing up my notes for this show, I was listening to music on both Spotify, YouTube Premium, and YouTube Music app, just to keep things in perspective, Now, new technology changes the way we think about and can approach music, and the changes have been radical since we began to record sound. Not only does it change accessibility of music for artists, every new invention that comes out gives a different type of person a different approach to music. And this is something I'm thinking Spaceboy can speak to later, is because he's both a musician and a music listener, appreciator. So I have to wonder, though, who got this notion first? And I don't think it was Edison, because good and well, maybe somebody was at a Mozart concert and they were thinking, I wish I could play this again or hear this again at 3 a.m. when I'm laying in bed. I don't know if they had that thought. Somebody must have thought that even before Edison came along. So, surely they were at some live music event like, hey, I wish there's a way I could hear this exact piece of music again so I could capture this moment and always remember it. That's just something I wonder. Now, I want to give you an interesting quote. 99 years ago, John Philip Sousa predicted that recordings would lead to the demise of music. The phonograph, he warned, would erode the finer instincts of the ear, end amateur playing and singing, and put the professional musicians out of work. He said the time is coming when no one will be ready to submit himself to the ennobling discipline of learning music. Everyone will have their ready-made or ready-pirated music in their cupboards. 99 years ago, he said that. Pirated music. Wow. That's something else, isn't it? Then was he known for like marching songs and you know? Did he do something like the Liberty Bell March or? I should look that up.
Yes, you should.
Yeah, well, I'll do that during the break. Because if he did the Liberty Bell March, that is actually the theme song for Monty Python's Flying Circus, which is an American piece of music. But was Sousa right? Was he right? Is that what's happened to music, the music industry?
I think to some degree, but you know, when I look to the future, even from this point forward, you don't have to have the theory behind creating music nowadays. In fact, you could
you don't have to learn how to read music or write.
In fact, the software I use to create music, it's not like I write it in theory.
But you do know that though, because you've had formal music training.
Mm-hmm. And it's the way it is now is the things that I know. It makes it so much quicker to do it because I call it a piano roll.
Right.
Where, you know, if you think about the old West where they had the little paper that would feed through and it would play the piano.
Those are cool.
And, you know, it's just like that where you have certain spots where if you paint this line and paint here.
You know, it's like early computer programming in a way.
It is.
That's pretty cool.
And it's gotten a lot easier and, you know, even to the degree of where you take these loops and create, you know, automatically pre-programmed loops of things.
Is that cheating though? Because if you don't have your training according to Sousa, you're I guess you some hacker. I mean, you know.
Well,
I don't think that, but you know.
It's all.
Bob's got some information. Hold on. John Philip Sousa. He was an American composer from 1854 to 1932. Look at that mustache. Holy smokes. You wish. He wrote American military marches, known for the March King. He's the American March King. Stars and Stripes Forever, Semper Fidelis, and the Liberty Bell March used as a theme for Monty Python's Flying Circus. So thank you for that, Bob. I had a suspicion that was him. But good old Sousa saw this way back then, before we even had the technology.
I think my train of thought was where I was heading is that, you know, it's going to come to a point where we're not going to create music.
Music's going to create us. No.
Well, I mean, with technology, it's like
AI.
Exactly, AI. Or could you imagine?
We won't be involved.
Somebody like myself, where you can, strap something to my head and
like a VR thing,
and I could just
think it,
and
I want that to happen though. Don't you want that to happen? That'd be cool.
To some degree. I mean,
we should probably save that for. But I don't know. I try to keep it organic. But so I wonder, was he right? Has these technological advances we made liberated music or imprisoned it? Which I don't think there's a case for the imprisonment part. But you could say, has it been a blessing or a burden? But that depends on who you ask. Are you asking the musician or are you asking the music listener?
Well, even in our time, as we've watched music develop from the 70s to today, we've seen a transition of that music and the formats where people, it's the a la carte syndrome, you know.
Yeah, we talk about this with cable TV and all this
and
stuff.
I'm not trying to get ahead or anything, but
you address these things.
I'm ready to get back to the beginning of cylinders.
Well, that's what's next.
Yeah.
Well,
and
let's start at the
crook.
beginning. Sorry, that's my what do you call it? Footstool down there. It's creaking. Sorry about that. To really appreciate how far we've come, we're gonna have to talk a little bit boring stuff, and we'll talk about the beginnings of recorded music. Now, who and where do we attribute this to? Well, we all know him, the man of 1,000 patents and possible Tesla nemesis, Thomas Edison.
Crook of history.
That's an opinion. It could be.
Mm-hmm.
He invented the phonograph. Now, what the flip is a phonograph? You know, let me tell you how it worked. So you got this thing. It's like a cylinder, a barrel.
A wax cylinder.
Well, it's not wax yet. Okay. As it moved, it passed under touching a metal stylus attached to one side of a diaphragm. The other side of this diaphragm was a small mouthpiece into which the operator spoke. The cylinder was covered in a soft, like tin, almost like tin or tinfoil. The sound waves focused onto the diaphragm caused it to vibrate, in which in turn caused the stylus to vary the pressure on the tinfoil. The drum rotated, moved across the stylus in a groove that was embossed in the tinfoil, consisting of undulations approximating the pressure patterns of sound waves. That's a really precise way to define this. The playback involved placing the stylus at the beginning of the groove made during the recording and winding the cylinder along once again. The undulations in the tinfoil caused the stylus to move in and out so the diaphragm would vibrate, which in turn moved the air to the mouthpiece, thus creating sound. Well, that's really a crude and barely audible way to get sound out.
An interesting fact is that stylus, not all of them were metal. They actually were made out of bamboo.
Yeah, it's probably a little more flexible, But so you've got this phonograph, but the thing is, the idea of using it for music was not something Edison was even thinking about. He was doing this as a way to record voice. Mm-hmm. And he thought, well, if you could record someone's voice and keep it forever, you've got records and you don't have to worry about hiring a stenographer and typing all this stuff up. He was trying to find out. Got to remember, Edison's a businessman. He is the ultimate capitalist. He's always looking, for the next big thing. So
that he could exploit.
He was using the phonograph for business communication, trying to replace stenography. Well, so that's out there. And then it comes along this guy called Charles Tranter and a guy called Alexander Graham Bell. Yes, that Alexander Graham Bell. These two guys saw a way to improve upon the phonograph by replacing the drum's little tinfoil with a wax cylinder. Now the recordings are a bit more audible, and it improved it a little bit. And so, of course, that gets Edison's attention. He comes back to the phonograph like, oh, what you guys doing here? No. Mm-hmm. And now he goes back and works on it and improves it some more. Now, while these three guys are off doing whatever to the phonograph, someone else invented the gramophone record. Emil Berliner, however you want to say it, created the gramophone as a way to sidestep the patent infringements of Edison's invention. So what Emil did is he made a simpler playback device that could be cheaply produced. His stylus moved over as a surface of a disc, not a drum. Mm-hmm. The oscillations from side to side vibrated throughout a diaphragm. The track was a thin coating of lamp black covering a metal disc. Now, lamp black is just a pigment made from soot. After recording, it got an acid bath. The acid would etch a groove in the metal where the stylus exposed it when they was recording it. So Berliner, it looks more like Berliner, realized that this method made copies really easy to produce by electroplating them to the original disc, and it provides a negative version with ridges instead of grooves. The metal negative became like a stamper for producing identical copies. So now you've got the very early beginnings of mass production, but it's still in that kind of a crude form. Just want to mention a couple other things because it's in the timeline briefly before we get to the really groundbreaking stuff. The magnetophone came out in the 1930s. This was the first attempt at a reel-to-reel tape recorder. Its quality was not good at all. Now, something I'll get a little bit more into as we talk about tape is I found this out, and I couldn't find really good detailed accounts about it. And it's probably because it was hush-hush because it was happening during World War II and the Nazis found it. That's probably why we don't know much. But in 1944, in 1940, early 1940s, a German sound engineer somehow accidentally found out about high bias recording on tape. Somebody brought in a faulty machine for repair. While they're trying to repair it, somehow magically they discovered a way to improve tape recording to where the sound was so superior, and it was the first time they heard something superior to the gramophone. It was a closely guarded Nazi secret for all of World War II, and while that war was going on, they just kept working on it and improving it. And I'll get into what tape bias is when we get to cassette tapes. That German engineer's name is Walter Weber, and he'll come up again. So, the first thing that happened to recording technology that had an impact on us culturally is the mass-produced vinyl record LP, and the LP comes a little bit later. The earlier recorded discs were made from hard rubber. Then later on, they were made from a 25% shellac material with a fill of cotton that's kind of like manila paper, powdered slate, and a small amount of wax lubricant. The mass production of shellac records began in 1898 in Hanover, Germany. And they were a thing until the 1950s, but shellac records are brittle. So they came up with a less breakable record in the form of a celluloid on pasteboard around 1904. But these records had a really high level of surface noise. But the standard format for these discs were 7 inches in diameter in the 1890s. And then in 1910, the standard became a 10-inch record. This was a popular format because it could hold 3 minutes of music or audio. And then the 12-inch records came out and they were sold, but these were mostly for opera and classical music because, you know, those pieces of music tend to be longer, and the 12-inch could hold up to 5 minutes of audio. Now keep in mind this is mono. It's all in mono. Okay, so not to be outdone, Edison's back again. In 1902, introducing his gold molded cylinders on sale for 50 cents each, which he used to improve upon the wax cylinder. You know, you just can't go around trying to outdo Edison. He's like a Hydra. You cut one invention off, 2 more appear.
Yeah, he's going to beat the whatever invention to death like an elephant.
Yeah. So these were mass-produced by a molding process that actually emitted a gold vapor. Another thing that was really popular around this time was something European artists who were featured on something called the Europe Red Seal. These were 10-inch discs with a 4-minute recording capacity that sold for $1 each. Can you imagine anything selling for $1 now? But the next big thing to hit was in 1906. The Victor Talking Machine Company debuts the Victrola. If you've not heard of Victrola, I know how old you are. These were just talking machines with a turntable and an amplifying horn tucked into a stylish cabinet. They weren't made to revolutionize audio recording or audio quality. They were produced to look good in your home, like furniture, instead of machinery. So it would fit in with the aesthetic, be pleasing to look at. They're beautiful. If you look at them, they're still around. You can see them on the auction block, reproductions. The Victrola became synonymous with the idea of a record player. It was the most popular home phonograph from 1906 to the 1920s, and they're still around. You can find some. But the age of vinyl, as we know it, doesn't really begin till like the 1940s, late. In 1948, we get introduced to the LP, or long playing record. It was created by Peter Goldmark. It was a vinyl record that could hold 21 minutes per side, was 12 inches wide, and it played at a speed of 33 1/3 revolutions per minute. This is what first changed the face of music industry, of recorded music, and this is also the birth of the album-centric concept. We say record, album. When we mean album-centric, we're talking about a group of songs together sold on one format, like a record. But not to be outdone, RCA Victor introduced their LP which turned at 45 revolutions per minute and was under 7 inches. So you've got these two mega giants going at it. It created a rivalry between RCA Victor and Columbia Records that led to RCA's Victor's introduction of their competing vinyl format, the 7-inch at 45 RPMs, the extended play or EP. So you've got LP and EP now. For a 2-year period from 1948 to 50, record companies and consumers faced an uncertainty over which of these formats would ultimately prevail, and it was known as the War of the Speeds, meaning the RPMs. Eventually, the 12-inch at 33 1/3 LP won as the predominant format, and the 7-inch was established as a significant niche for shorter duration discs, typically containing one song on each side. So I'm guessing this is where you get your one song per side. So you get your single
45.
Yeah, so you get your single, that's the hot thing, you know, on the charts, and then you get like a
B-side.
B-side, it could be another version of it, or it be a song that artist didn't like and he just throws it out there. You know? But I had 45s, I had a few LPs, but I had a lot more 45s that were hand-me-downs than anything else. So rather than disappear at the 21st century's beginning, the vinyl records have begun a rather impressive comeback. Faced with competition of more forms of media such as the iPod, YouTube, where we can hear music for free, some buyers are just nostalgic baby boomers trying to get Generation Y, starting to purchase turntables. Younger consumers appreciate aspects of vinyls that can't be gotten out of an iPod, such as warmer sound quality and more elaborate album covers. Oh my gosh, album cover art. That's the only reason you want to buy an LP. But I'll stop right there so we can do a break, but we've got more to say about this format.
So, before we go to break, pop quiz. What kind of dog was the mascot for RCA? Think about that, and we'll come back and answer that.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana.
Hey, Surlana!
What?
If Spaceboy Universe was cheese, would you eat it? Come on now, it's a simple question.
Maybe?
SpaceboyUniverse.com.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
All right, we're back, Space Cadets, and the correct answer was Jack Russell. It was a Jack Russell dog. Congratulations if you guessed it right. So,
no, congratulations if you cheated.
I know that you just stuffed your mouth full of chocolate, but...
No, I'm fine.
Oh, you are? Okay.
How are you?
Well,
I just laid chocolate down on your side of the desk.
I know, that was very nice of you.
And he's getting into it now.
Because
I don't want it and I don't like it.
And I was actually going to make a peanut butter sandwich, but...
Well, that has peanut butter.
Yeah, I know.
Technically.
So this pretty much solved that.
Well, so when we left off, we just found out we've got the 12-inch LP and we've got the smaller 7-inch 45, right? So you're 33, you're 45, you're 12, you're 7. And those are the two that I'm familiar with. Like I said, I've lived through most of these except for the phonograph. It was already, it's before my time. But so there's two standards we have today, this 12-inch and 7-inch. And you know what? They never died off. People are still collecting. People are still some artists are still having their music pressed in LPs. It's not the...
In fact, just the other day I was looking at Facebook and Oingo Boingo
That's
just
a reference.
re-released their Dead Man's Party album.
Talking about niche. They were hot for like one movie in the 80s, and I think that was Weird Science, because they did the title song Weird Science. But the vinyl record never fully died off. It's going to be with us for a while, but you'll hear people to this day say nothing beats the optimal quality and listening experience of a vinyl LP record, even in this digital age.
It's true. I believe that the 45, the album, there's something, I mean, even the pops, the hisses, and that's...
People like that
People
stuff.
like that. That imperfections, if you will, made it perfect.
But, and I should wait to bring this up, but what people like those imperfections from vinyl, but we didn't like it in our MP3 format because you could hear the compression, and people didn't like that.
People got over it, though.
Well, it got better. It was like when they would record it at like less than 128 KPS, 96 and lower, which is fine for speaking audio, but not for music, Anyway, it cannot be understated the impact the vinyl record had on society and musicians, artists, and the people who listen to music. The mass production of vinyl records resulted in greater exposure of music to a wider audience. All types of music to all types of people. Local artists could finally gain some worldwide popularity if they could get pressed into vinyl. Also, record albums bridged racial divides, starting with jazz in the 1920s through the 1960s when you get Motown. We're talking about a century where the record album dominated as a format to listen to music. Now, the major period for vinyl was from the inception of vinyl LP from 48 to 1988. And it was in 1988 where CDs outsold records for the first time. So the rise and fall and resurgence of vinyl is a period spanning almost a century. For record enthusiasts, it remains the singular most impressive format of recording and reproducing music. January 2017 reported the highest number of vinyl records sold since 1991. And there's a list that I found of the top selling vinyl records that sold this year in 2018. Yes, they're still selling vinyl records in 2018. Mm-hmm. And so the top 10, I wonder if it will surprise you. So the top 10 vinyl pressed LP records that sold this year. Number 10, Guardians of the Galaxy Awesome Mix 1. Number 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Awesome Mix 2. Number 8, Legacy by David Bowie. Number 7, Nevermind by Nirvana. Number 6, What's the Story, Morning Glory, Oasis. Number 5, Staying at Tamara's, George Ezra. Number 4, The Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd. Number 3, The Greatest Showman, motion picture cast recording. Number 2, Rumors by Fleetwood Mac. And the number 1 vinyl LP for this year that's sold so far is Tranquility Base Hotel and Casino by Arctic Monkeys. Arctic Monkeys is a more recent group.
As far as that list is concerned, I'm pretty much on top of that one. I think I can concur with that list.
But did you see how many of those were from a while back?
Well, 70s at least. Yeah. But Guardians of the Galaxy, the mix.
But the music in that was from the 70s and 80s.
Exactly. So
people wanted to hear that on its original format, I suppose. Now, I read that, they said the best-selling album all time had been, Michael Jackson's Thriller, but I was like, is that album or sold on vinyl? That's what I could not get the distinction, because they said that the Eagles' greatest hits, 1971 to 75, has now bumped Michael. But I'm thinking, do they mean LP, or they just mean sales of any format whatsoever? That I could not find a distinction now.
One of our space cadets, Bob, mentioned about some cereal boxes back in the day, and it's way back in the day, showing my age too.
I remember that.
They had records on.
I remember that.
Yeah, so
showing my age. And they would say they were like really bendable and thin.
Yeah,
you'd have to put a penny down to hold it, to give it some weight.
Yeah.
Like you just it was perforated, and you detach it from its little packaging.
Bob was mentioning like the Monkees and the Archies and the Osmonds, and
people no one wants to listen to anymore. But some articles I read said this: why your passion for LP vinyls is bad for the environment. And I looked in and I'm like, oh, it's because it's made from PVC, polyvinyl chloride. But that's producing them. That's what they're producing. I'm like, I don't think vinyls are being produced on the level they were in the 60s, the 70s. I don't think we should have to worry about that anymore.
They're not being produced with radioactivity and...
I just don't think... I think as long as we keep what we have, we don't make more.
I think the new albums are produced and they're gluten-free.
Well... I don't know that they're being produced at that same rate that we have to worry. I mean, sure, they're going to fill up landfills after we're dead, but another article I read said that compact discs were widely available in 1982, and you confirmed that, but I'm like, well, I must live in a backward small town, which I did. I never knew one person that had a compact disc or disc player in the 1980s. It wasn't until the 90s it came to my hometown, but okay.
I had a Sony CD Walkman, and it was bulky.
I had one later.
But it was definitely a CD player.
Well, what's the end of the story for the vinyl LP? Well, there really isn't an end, because they're no longer the reigning champion, but they're not buried in obscurity either. They're still with us.
If I can interject here, the apex for albums was about 1975.
Really? I would thought it'd been much later.
And no, 75 is about right. Really? Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I get it now.
And I tell you, I stocked up on a lot of albums courtesy of Columbia House.
You were one of those zombies, huh? I got suckered into the only pay a penny. And
I wouldn't say I was a sucker. I got some great stuff like Toto and...
what was the catch to that? Did you have to sell your soul?
The catch was that you got the 11 albums, right? And then you had to buy so many other albums at the regular cost. I mean, it wasn't that expensive, but
Well, so why is there this nostalgia for buying cassettes and vinyl records? Well, it's the sale of vinyl had the same cultural impact as the light bulb. You know, culture and nostalgia are to keep alive. But the thing is, there's something about holding a physical object in your hand, like a record or a cassette tape. It's like an artifact from an archaeological dig. The further we get away from it because we haven't used it, it's more special.
There's a certain cool
you hand it to your
cool
little
factor.
kid, it'd be like they're like, "What is that?" You know.
It's like watching those YouTube videos where you show the kids a phone with the dial on it, and they can't figure out how it works.
Well, so we get into the next thing the next piece of technology that actually starts to upset the record industry. But let's start with a little history first, as always. So there's precursors of the cassette tape going back to the late 1800s. And I'm just going to take a moment to enjoy my typos because, man, they're phenomenal. It's like the right word. The word is spelled correctly, but it's the wrong word to go in that spot. You know, just want to point that out. So you've got developments and various patents to the idea of recording to a tape surface from the 1920s and 1930s. BASF, the company, developed the first tape for AEG called the magnetophone. Cool name. What this was is foil and cellulose acetate used as a carrier, coated with lacquer of iron oxide. Sounds like it's something dangerous to hold, doesn't it? They kept working on it and developing it throughout the 1930s. Now here we talk about good old tape bias. And I gotta go run up here and grab this piece of... Sorry about this. I should have done this earlier. Grab this piece of paragraph. Cut. We talk about cassette tapes here. Get back down here. So, AC bias was discovered by accident in Germany by sound engineer Walter Weber during World War II. Now, what the heck is bias? What are we talking about? We talk tape bias. Basically, when you're recording to a tape recorder, DC bias adds a direct current to the audio signal that's being recorded. AC bias adds an inaudible high-frequency signal to the audio. Most contemporary tape recorders that were around used AC bias, and it helped with the reduction of noise and distortion. And that's what Walter Weber had discovered. And they kept it a secret during all of World War II, from when they backed into it, and So in 1946, BASF comes out with Scotch magnetic tape, and in 1953, same company launches the LGS tape series, and in 1957, stereo recording begins. That's significant. Next year, RCA cartridge is released. Now, RCA Records made an early attempt at making this a popular pre-recorded music format. Now, it turned out to be a flop. Cartridges would have prices ranging from $4.95 for a 20-minute tape to $9.95 for an hour. RCA was slow to produce machines for the home market to license recorded music, and the format disappeared from the market by 1964. But the next big leap in this development is 1959 with the Fidela Pack NAB cartridge. And I looked at the photograph. It's sort of like the 8-track, where it's just a single reel that loops. But then the king emerges in 1963. The cassette tape as we know it comes to us from Europe through its manufacturer, Philips Company, in 1964. This cassette tape was small enough to go into a portable tape recorder because that was battery powered. So now you can record on the go. It had reversible housing from 30 to 45 minutes of stereo music per side. Just an aside, in the U.S., Philips was using the name Norelco. Ever heard of that?
No, not with this beard.
So I looked at the very first home tape recorder. And there's something very simple to look. It's so simple. It's just like a box with, but it's also kind of aesthetically pleasing in its simplicity. And you know what really struck me about it? Is I was thinking Star Trek. It felt so original Star Trek in its look. I was like, this would be cool to have, you know. So in 1965, the 8-track comes to us groovy people. The 8-track was developed by the Learjet Corporation, no less, and they did it for the new line of Ford cars, the new models coming out, because they're putting the 8-track in the cars. So if you ever wonder where it came from, the Lears are to blame. Now, 8-track used one single reel containing a tenuous endless loop of recording tape prepared so that the tape was able to slip out from its inner round of the tape spool. I suppose that has some significance. Now, there's this big, ugly battle, and I didn't want to get really into this, you know, too much with, because I wanted to talk about the cultural impact on listeners and musicians of the cassette tape in the music industry. But there was this really interesting battle between Philips and Grundig over licensing fees that were demanded by the creators of the music. So it's one of the reasons Philips and Grundig decided to work together and develop a European cartridge system. They released a prototype at the end of it, but the collaboration didn't go very well after that, so it fell apart. So Grundig and Philips kind of went to war over compact cassettes. So the CD International Cassette System is introduced at the Berlin exhibition. They didn't ask for any licensing fees for their cassettes, and I guess they did that to upset Philips. Now, while they were doing this, you know, battle, Japan's like, "Hey, what y'all doing over there? What's this cassette thing?" So they got involved, and when I say Japan, I mean Sony. They caught this interest, and they proposed working with Philips in their division, the Japan division, and they would help develop the cassette and get it out to the mass market. Well, there was all kind of different agreements about licensing fees, what to charge, the format size, the rights to the patent or whatever. And that all basically devolved. So in 1965, based on a patent that guaranteed compatibility, Philips made the technology available free of charge to manufacturers all over the world. So during the first 2 years, everybody has its own name for the cassette tape. Sometimes people call it cassette cartridge, sometimes cassette, sometimes cassette tape. So they needed a uniform name for this, and the result is well known. Since 1965, the cassette carries the name compact cassette. I never called it that. Now, these early cassettes were not the best quality or fidelity. They were mostly for, like Edison wanted, dictation and voice recording. But as always, somebody can't leave it alone, right? They make various companies and people make improvements and advances to cassette tape. Noise reduction and sound quality and the ability to play in stereo were some of the first things that were worked on. And in 1968, TDK SD released the first cassette to market for hi-fi enthusiasts. Then, that same year, Ray Dolby developed a hiss reduction technology called Dolby Noise Reduction. And again, it continues to get improved upon through the 70s and 80s for the cassette tape. Now, what's significant on the level that was significant for vinyl records was the first easily mass-produced. It got music into our hands. It was readily and easily available. It was diverse. It was revolutionary. Now here comes something that's going to take music in a new direction. something that vinyl records didn't quite do is make music truly portable. 1971, the first truly self-contained portable music system debuts, the Sony Walkman. It's a new era of portability, and it's first sold for 33,000 Japanese yen, because the picture I saw of it was a Japanese advertisement in Japanese. How many Walkmans did I get through in my child to teen years? Oh my goodness. I would break those suckers like...
Batteries.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, tons of batteries.
I wore them out. I wore the mechanism for the tape part out. I would always be left with just the AM/FM, and what would go out is the what we call the dial to go up and down the channels. That would go loose. I mean, I would just wear those suckers out.
And you know, I have a love of big pins, right? So
they're perfect for
like, for example, whenever the tape would come out of the cassette and you had to use a device to...
Didn't we watch a video about that?
Well, what's fascinating is that because of the way the Bic crystal is kind of like...
beveled.
It's beveled. It's got the right
fits
size.
in those notches.
Exactly.
It's actually, when the cap is on is when it fits the best, I think. So, But I recall being... You know, when I had a tape player, whether it was in a boombox or a Walkman, I recall, or you know, a stereo shelf, I'd be so frustrated over the mechanics of it and how easily I could break it and it would wear out. And what just ticked me off in the car, with a cassette player in the car, rewinding and fast forwarding and ejecting and trying to flip it over. I didn't even know back then. I was yearning for this digital format that we have now, with, you know, being able to scan seamlessly and quickly. I didn't know what was coming. And that right there is a good point. Cassette tapes give you. There's something liberating about being in control of your music. I mean, so in control, like, I'm going to skip this song. I'm going to turn it over. I'm going to, you know, whatever I want to do. You get this tape. You could take it with you if you have your Walkman, or, you know, if you're in the car, wherever, whenever. You just play the parts you want to hear, even though it's frustrating to fast forward or rewind. Now, I read this briefly. Somebody did an academic study where they actually interviewed people who lived through the heyday of cassette tapes, and about their experiences and what they thought about it, what they felt about it, why they would still go back and listen to their cassette tapes if they had them. So, there's a quote. One of the most significant changes related to cassettes is very much connected with the empowerment felt by users. Again, this is you're in control.
Mm-hmm.
The relationship of music and listeners was taking a new turn. I'm, of course, referring to the increased agency and active role of the listener in manipulating the sound contents. This is what happened with home taping in the pursuit of compiling mixtapes. The almighty mixtape. Now, this is where the music industry starts to go, what? So this is taping off the radio. This is making your own mixes.
Speaking of mixtapes, you know how you were talking about how you had to fast forward to get to the song you want. I would make tapes where it would be, I was making cassette singles, and I know that they sold cassette singles.
Well,
but
not at first. It came a lot later. A lot later.
What I would do is I would buy several cassettes.
I don't know if they were called cassingles, but I always called them cassingles just because I was really innovative.
So anyway, what I would do is, you know, I would record whatever song I wanted on the cassette that I bought.
Right.
And then I would cut the cassette tape, you know, after so many seconds, so I could create a lead, if you will. And then I would unscrew the cassette and then just like you would do with the big reel-to-reels.
You're physically cutting and pasting.
Cutting and pasting. And
that's
so
pretty cool, babe.
I would make cassette singles that way.
While I was typing up this section, I remembered something I forgot completely. And I was like, oh, man. So, how old was I during the 80s? I was going...
95?
The 80s. I I was 7 years old in 79, so I was between 8 and 17 during the 80s, I guess. 8 and 18. So I was like on it, you know. I didn't realize this. Not only did I tape songs from the radio, but I would get, you know, the blank tapes, and I would get them ready to be cued at any moment. So if there's a song coming on one, but I would go and I would do stuff just like that with my VHS blank tapes. I mean, I would be taping. And what I didn't know was I was making vines and memes before they were a thing. So I'd get my audio tape and I would go up to the TV speaker and I would record a snippet from a TV show of a line I liked. And it was just, and you know, Night Flight came out. So I was taping these, I don't know, interesting media things. And I'm like, I wish I could find those suckers because I didn't throw them away. I don't know where they went, but I have moved 8 million times since I had those. But I was making memes before they were a thing. So, but we're gonna get into something that's really revolutionary important. But we're up against a break, and so I would like to take a moment here to go to the break so I can tell you about why cassettes upset the record industry.
Okay, you heard Surlana. We'll be right back.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana.
The epic battle begins this Friday. Direct from ringside at Laser Death Melt Pit. Bot versus Bot in Galaxy's 2-ton weight championship, where your challenger, Good Bot, will face the reigning champion, Bad Bot.
You're terminated.
Reserve seating starting at $30. 2-drink minimum, where ladies don't get in free. This is an SBU production.
You're listening to Spaceboy Universe.
are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
Surlana has stepped away for a moment, and she should be back very shortly. Until then, enjoy me pouring a cup of Canada Dry. Oh, yeah. Hear them fizzies? Oh, yeah. Nothing better to fill time than to hear fizzies from pouring a soft drink into a cup. Ooh. Stay in that cup. There you go. And it's got plenty of ice in there. Oh, you hear the fizz? Oh, that's cool. Yes. Anyway. Oh. Great. Just spilt it all over me. But anyway, I'll take this opportunity to let you know that we do not know what next week's show is, but the week of the 15th, we'll have Robert Sullivan IV on, and we'll be talking about Hollywood symbolism and, you know, things that you find in movies that you think they're one thing, but they're quite another. So that's going to be pretty exciting when we have him on. And so, speaking of which, here comes Mrs. Personality now.
I'm sorry, you said 3 minutes. I thought that was 3 minutes.
No, you took more than 3 minutes. But anyway, we're back.
Sorry, I hurried. That's okay. Anyway, the thing is, we've got the cassette tape now. It's in everyone's home. We've got, we can record things off the radio. We can make mixtapes. So, what's the big deal? Well, in the 1980s, the heyday of cassette tapes, the beginning of a long revolution for the music listener, and I probably think it ends with today's streaming music, but what they were upset about in the 1980s, in the U.S. and in the UK, record labels publicly confronted consumers over private copying of music onto blank cassette tapes. So this is where I learned about the old campaign, "Home taping is killing music." And that was the slogan, and it had a very iconic, icon. And it's a black cassette tape, and underneath it is two crossed bones. Like the skull and bones of a pirate flag. So, and as I was reading about home taping is killing music, I started to smirk, because it is kind of adorable to read about this part where the treatment of tapes of the music industry. I vividly recall the night I downloaded Napster EXE. So they're worried about you taping things to blank cassettes, and I'm thinking maybe they had an inkling of what's coming, but they didn't know what was coming. It was going to take another decade to get here before the you-know-what really hit the fan. So I think the record industry had no idea. Or maybe they did, but they were just a decade too early to worry about it. So the beginnings of their worst fear. The Record Recording Industry Association of America, that is the RIAA, and the British Phonographic Industry, that's BPI, both mounted campaigns to combat the practice of home taping. And this is where you get that cassette crossbones. And when I saw the cassette with the crossed bones, I immediately went and looked up the logo for the Pirate Bay. Sure enough, the Pirate Bay has the pirate ship, and in the middle sail is the old cassette with the crossed bones underneath. So I thought that was an interesting throwback. And I will talk more about what the Pirate Bay is, but it doesn't fit into this era right now. So back to the home taping scare. So both of these, BPI and RIAA, took legal action and lobbied each of their governments for new copyright legislation. They condemned home taping as piracy. Though private non-commercial copying was legal, of course, fans and musicians widely objected to these attempts to control their media. And just to make it clear, home taping was in no way like file sharing of the 90s and the 2000s. There's just, you can't compare it. The resale value of a home copy of an album on tape was rather narrow and not all that desirable. If you did want a bootleg cassette copy, you didn't go through some authorized channel. It was through some, shady deals. But what they were really upset about? There were some slumps in the sales of music, some cassettes. But it wasn't due to home taping like they thought. It was just the natural ebb and flow of sales, and has to do with the economy, what's going on in the economy. Like, people don't have spendable income. They're not going to spend it on cassettes, Yet, the BPI and RIAA blame the consumer for their slump in sales on home privacy. Like, well, y'all are out there making copies of things. That's why we can't sell it. Like, God, that's stupid. But I kind of like that their worst fears did come true in the next decade. Then, as time always does, a new technology comes along. So, home taping is killing music. As a quote, upon introduction, the slogan was thus literally a lie. And worse still, whilst losses to artists due to piracy were unknown at the time, losses to artists due to the industry's own ripoffs were irrefutable and astronomical, meaning the things they were doing inside the music industry to their own artists were more despicable than anything we were doing at home. So it should be industry sharks are killing music. That might have been a more appropriate slogan, at least as a known quantity. But the idea of home taping killing music didn't really enter into public consciousness until 1982 into 1983. It was an aggressive slogan and one that alienated paying customers. Like, you're doing this and you're killing it, and it's like you're accusing us of doing something that's just not happening. So some said if you go around doing that, it's going to backfire and glorify home taping as a rebellious act and make it more enticing. Of course, the record industry had a bee in their bonnet already about cassette taping going back to the mid-1970s, when they started printing warnings in the inner linings of record sleeves about, copying. But curiously, in the 70s, there was nothing about copyright. There was no legalese about copyright inside your LP linings or anything. 70s copyright notices were thought of as unnecessary to even print out. Oh, how times have changed. But the 80s were the decade of the cassette tape, but it was also when they died. The ending being the CD, which was launched. Again, I don't remember the 80s as being the CD decade. If you had one, I believe you, but I really associate the CD height as the 90s. I was plenty old enough to remember everything in the 80s, but nobody I knew around me had a CD in the 80s. So, there's been a resurgence recently of the cassette tape because of movies like Guardians of the Galaxy features actual cassette tapes. Because that was when Peter Quill left Earth. He was taken as a kid in the 80s, and he had that on him when he was taken. Lots of movies are featuring, retro songs and stuff from the 80s, so there's a nostalgia to want to hear it on its original format. The Netflix show Stranger Things released their soundtrack on a cassette tape for fun, I guess, because it took place during the 80s, apparently. And sales of those were good for Stranger Things and Guardians. Again, cassettes are a way to preserve the past and stay connected to those who are gone in a way that feels more tangible because you can hold it in your hand. Like the vinyl record, the tape is a relic, a tangible artifact from the past. We don't feel that way about CDs yet because there hasn't been enough time between us and CDs. So, speaking of CDs, here's the next thing that has an impact. And it came in a way I don't think the record industry foresaw either, because something happens, everybody likes it, they find a way to exploit it, then they got to find a way to kill it and stop it, and then we find another way to get around that. It's just this never-ending cycle. So I read online, this article said, one of the best and one of the absolute worst things that can happen to music industry is when a new configuration comes along. I guess this means a new technology or a format. The vinyl was the first, the 8-track, the cassette tape, they all had an impact on recording and selling of music. And that's what's happened so far. So I learned that at first the music industry did not embrace the compact disc immediately. But you know what? When MTV came out, they didn't embrace that either. And for a while, it was a question of, should we make a CD version of this artist's album released or not? So not every artist got onto CD in the beginning when they came out. This is my take on it. I think, one, what made it popular right away is, one, the sound quality was like nothing we'd ever heard before. And two, the sheer novelty of the format. It was like this whole new format, it's this compact disc. I think that's what led people to rush to early adopt. But it was also significantly a way to preserve your vinyl records that you were wearing out, probably broke, so old. You could just go get the CD version of it, and go preserve your vinyl, and go archive it. And you could take that CD and play it in your car once you got converted over to a compact disc player. And like you said, you had the Discman where you could take it on the go, and I went through probably 3 of those. I mean, I was tough on physical media. People wore out their Dark Side of the Moon LP, so they can get it on CD now. Most were rebuying their favorite records they already had on vinyl, so they were just replacing what they have already as a way to preserve it. 1981, the first artist to release on CD was ABBA, The Visitors. Does anybody remember how much it cost to buy your first store-bought CD of music? My first CD was a gift. It was a birthday gift, and it was Cosmic Thing by the B-52s. So this was the 90s. So I still have that CD, and I never bought, I would say I had, and the whole time CDs were out, I probably bought 20 or less because they were so dadgum expensive, and I didn't have a job. So that kept, the cost of them kept me away from buying them. And I still have all of them unless they were damaged, the ones that I bought. Now, what they did not foresee, I think, is once, technology of the PC computer is being developed along with the compact disc. You've got the compact disc for your computer, which you can record and re-record on, and then you have your commercially produced compact disc music. Well, now you can take the CD, put it in your computer, and rip it. Record off the CD to WAV file, and then you can get a piece of software to burn it back to a CD that's playable in your boombox or your Discman or your car. And in the early days, you could do it to an MP3, but we didn't have devices to listen to MP3. So you had to burn them to waves and back to an audio format that your car, your boombox could do. So now the idea of mixtape comes back in the mix CD. And you get to keep all that freedom you had with your cassette tape. Now, the CDs were higher quality sound. They were even more portable. You see the technology is liberating us more and more and more. And I guess what it took to burn a commercial CD, I don't know if that was the justification for the price of having to buy one. I didn't fall for it. But it was good for the record industry for a long while, the selling of CDs. The record industry did not see this as a temporary format. The CDs saved that slump from the 80s. They had a 15-year growth in the record industry from CDs. A lot of it was just people replacing their vinyl and cassettes because this is now the superior format. Longer lasting. Turns out not true. Those CDs degrade just as badly as most other things if you don't really stay on top of caring for them. what was interesting is classical music sales went through the roof when they moved to CDs, and like old recordings that got put on CDs, those sold amazingly. Then in the middle of all this, you now have online shopping. You can go online and get a CD. Really interesting article came out in 1997 from The Economist, and the article was titled "Tremble Everyone," which warned of the internet cannibalizing nearly every industry, music included, by introducing online buying options. So I don't know how buying online cannibalizes anything, but if anything's going to cannibalize it, it's what's coming up. So there was this boom in the CD years. Radio was changing during the 90s. MTV was starting to move away from music videos. At the end of the 90s, you can now digitize your music, create your own CD, make a copy of one that you bought at the store. So why is a CD even important? I don't know that it is, but there's still an audience out there who wants to buy physical media, even the CD. It does have a diminishing importance as far as for artists and musicians. But for a long while, as a Spaceboy could point out, is if you didn't have a CD of your music, you couldn't get reviewed. And for a while, if you didn't have a physical CD of music, you couldn't get on Pandora, although you said this may have changed recently.
Mm-hmm.
You told me, as of this year, 2018, Best Buy will no longer sell music CDs at all, which is bittersweet because I came into Best Buy maybe right at its height when it started selling CDs. We didn't get a Best Buy in my hometown until late 90s. I mean, y'all had Best Buy probably for years, but I was a small town. So I'd go in there and I would find the strangest, most obscure, bizarre music on CD in there. And I just like looking. I didn't buy. But for me, if I would buy, I would go to Sound Warehouse over close to Bossier City, and whatever music store was left in the mall before the mall died. So I don't really have an end to the CD saga. We still have them. I guess they're still being produced. I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't want a CD anymore. I just don't.
Well, now most vehicles can play the MP3 format.
Yeah, about to get to that. I didn't want to start.
Oh,
I'm so close to a break, but I didn't know how to finish the CD story, because is there an end to it? Really? I mean, I remember buying CDs, but I only bought ones that were like from Amazon, in the 90s. I bought ones that were unusual, that I knew I could not go to the store and find because they were so niche.
Special European mixes, yes.
Yeah. That was what was great about Amazon in the early days when they were selling that kind of stuff. I know Amazon still sells CDs, music CDs. They must. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's always eBay, thank God.
Yeah. I mean, it's a dying market when you look at it, but I mean, still, you can still buy CDs out there. It's kind of like they're still making LPs and they're still making cassettes.
Yeah, but I kind of understand that because it's a nostalgia thing. You want to introduce your not those kids to it. It's like a relic and an artifact because we have nothing like that today. If you hand off a jump drive, it's not interesting.
That's what I was going to say. Is that it's much easier to just transfer some files onto a thumb drive, a memory stick,
which you can scan the album art, or if it's digital, it'll have it on there, so you can still see that stuff if you want to.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, that's the easy route to go.
Well, the next thing, I don't know how revolutionary CDs were in this with cultural impact, other than what you could do with the music once you got it home and got it in your computer. And we'll talk about that, we'll come back for the break. And the next section is called, If Video Killed the Radio Star, Did the Internet Kill the Music Industry?
And we'll be right back after this.
To me, that go by real fast. That whole
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana.
Greetings, Space Cadets. Let's see what's in the sky tonight in the Spaceboy Universe. Tonight, in the eastern sky, we have Spaceboy Universe rising above the horizon in glorious splendor. And in the west, we can see Surlana's Majoris, which is visible at 9 p.m. Central Standard Time, just below the K-28 belt. So keep your eyes on the sky and listen to Spaceboy Universe.
I'm Solaris Blue Ribbon, and I'm listening to Spaceboy Universe.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
I'm back. Do you have to rely on me to say something when we come back? I mean,
well, I have jumped ahead sometimes, and you've chastised me for we're getting to that. Calm down, slow down. So
I didn't do that tonight. I'm just saying. Yeah, I will mention that later.
No, but that's why I'm waiting for you to where are we going from here?
Well, we're going to talk about the internet age. And this, I think this has had more impact on the music industry. If anything killed the music industry, I believe this is it. And we're talking about mainly the MP3 file format. Mm-hmm. Because it is a digital file format. It's not necessarily a device or a physical media like the cassette or the CD. Now we're getting really abstract, It's a digital file format, and the MP3 is what was being shared over peer-to-peer networks. They started, most likely, when you got your CDs and you ripped them, and then you finally had the technology that would take your WAV files and rip them directly to the MP3 format. And then, sure enough, technology caught up with your boombox and your car and your other players where you could play CDs with MP3s on them. But I don't think that lasted very long, because as soon as the MP3 format took off, we had iPods, and then we had MP3 players, and then things went to streaming. So what was interesting is I did read a timeline of the inception of the MP3 format. I didn't feel like really getting into that minutia, but it started in the 1980s and came into real fruition in the 90s. It had its heyday in 95, but this is still before we got to know it. It discovered its way online by 98, 99, and the internet became the files format's true home. And eventually the consumer can create their own MP3s with their own music. They can record to it. And the early adopter to play the MP3 file format was my beloved Winamp, which is coming back next year. They were an early adopter as a free software MP3 player. But this would become a nightmare for the music industry in 1999 to 2000 with Napster. It's been 19 years since I first downloaded Napster. I was there right at its inception when it was no. My brother sent me Napster.exe through, online chat we were using. I can't believe it's been almost 20 years. I remember that night vividly. Napster was created by then 19-year-old Sean Fanning. It was a file sharing application where you could download this application to your computer and start downloading random files from random people. It wasn't just music, but predominantly it was music, and that's what people got upset about. It had a very short time. I was there during the heyday until Lars Ulrich, the drummer for the band Metallica, began the outcry for artists not being paid for files that were being shared illegally. Here's what Here's what Lars said back in the day. If people want to steal Metallica's music, instead of hiding behind their computers in their bedrooms and dorm rooms, they should go down to Tower Records and grab them off the shelves, fumed Ulrich at the time. I did not like that man back in the day. So what this led to was something called the Digital Media Copyright Act. This led to legal actions. It led to Napster being taken down in 2001 and being shut down because people were illegally sharing. It was providing a way for people to illegally share files they did not pay for. It became a crime to share copyrighted music. People were paying fines. They were serving some jail time. And you can bring in film, TV, and software industries into this as well, because it wasn't just music. Soon as Napster went down, an explosion of other peer-to-peer files sharing came out. And I looked up old peer-to-peer file sharing, and this is what came up. Airs Galaxy, Azurus, BearShare, BitComet, BitSpirit, BitTorrent, DC++, eMule, eDonkey, FrostWire, iMesh, LimeWire, Morpheus, Napster, QTorrent, ShareZara, uTorrent, and WinMX, and there was more. I'm telling you, there was a lot more. I recall BearShare, eMule, LimeWire, iMesh, Morpheus, Napster, and WinMX. I also did something called Audio Galaxy and ScourNet. I did them all. But the reason I felt justified was, one, the high cost of CDs. Two, the things I was getting as far as music were obscure, and even if I wanted to walk into a store and buy it, they didn't have it. They couldn't order it. It was like from a bygone era. It was some very special mix or remix of a song that you could not buy anywhere. So those were glorious times, I'm telling you. But in 2004, the U.S. music industry began legal action against up to 500 users. Now, Napster did come back later on as a legit service, but, you paid for access to it, and it was all legit because you're paying. So, CDs got a treatment, too, at this time, because, this is early 2000s. We still got our CDs. They attempted to copyright protect CDs to keep people from putting them in their computers so they could rip them to WAVs and MP3s, because that's how you got your digital files. This was called DRM, Digital Rights Management, and it was put out by Sony BMG, and it installed a software on computers without telling the users. It installed a rootkit, and of course, when you install a rootkit, somebody else can exploit it. When we all found out about it, the consumers were furious, so Sony had to recall millions of CDs that had the DRM on it. But even at that, all it did was stop copying CDs, and it only affected people who were using Windows computers, because that's the people were doing it. And that's how we were burning our CDs, so it worked. But while Sony BMG DRM technology created a fundamental vulnerabilities in customers' computers, parts of it could be trivially bypassed by holding down the shift key while inserting the CD, or by disabling the auto run feature on your CD drive. In addition, audio tracks could simply be played and re-recorded and bypass all the DRM, which is known as the analog hole. Sony's first two attempts at releasing a patch would remove the DRM from software users' computers failed. And then January 2007, EMI stopped publishing audio CDs with DRM, stating that the costs of DRM do not measure up to the results. So Sony was the last publisher to abolish DRM completely, and audio CDs containing it were no longer released by the four largest commercial record label companies. So they shot themselves in the foot too, it wasn't just us. So one by one, from 2000 to, let's say 2018 maybe, these file sharing peer-to-peer sites go down. Meanwhile, as they're dying, a new way of getting around that appears. A Swedish torrent site called the Pirate Bay emerged. Now, again, what cracked me up is their logo. It has the old Home Taping is Killing Music logo on the sail of the ship. It's a nice throwback that acknowledges the rebellious nature, of taking control of your own music. And it was a peer-to-peer file sharing platform. Now, I never did BitTorrent, so this is a little sketchy for me. I tried to do some research on how it actually worked. It worked the same way other peer-to-peer is, like you would go get something would happen to your connection, or you'd have to log off if you're doing dial-up or, your DSL, or the person you're sharing from would go offline, and your partial file would stay there, and the next person that had that file that could complete it would seed the file and finish it for you. But the thing is, with a torrent site, when it's different, is you downloaded something that had a .torrent suffix ending. The .torrent file is a pointer to the actual file you want, which will be downloaded quickly. So torrent was a way to download large files quickly for people who had crappy bandwidth access. So I didn't understand, are you downloading a torrent, which is not an MP3. It's not a movie format. Is that how they're getting around the copyright issue? But regardless, April 2009, the Pirate Bay's founder was jailed for a year over copyright breach. Now, file sharing, good or bad? Well, who are you asking? Are you asking the person that's getting the file, or are you asking the artist who made that piece of music? Interesting statistic. In 2008, 40 billion with a B, 40 billion music files were downloaded without payment, according to the International Federation of Phonographic Industry, which I didn't know was a thing, meaning 95% of all digital music was downloaded illegally in 2008. So their argument on that side is file sharing is making it harder and harder for new artists to emerge. Not sure what the argument is there. More and more applications were starting to be sued for helping people to pirate music, like LimeWire. Napster, like I said, was shut down in 2001, but copying technology, its impact on the music industry is still passionately debated. The music industry representatives argue that the practice decreased CD sales, while supporters of file sharing allege the practice could actually increase sales. Strange. There's a study that finds support for the claim that file sharing has decreased sales. So some of the key findings was in 2000, computer owners means CD expenditures decreased, a statistically 10% decrease. Non-computer owners means CD expenditures increased. 2002, 2003, where the years Napster-like services continue to grow, computer owners means CD expenditures decreased by $4.79 and $5.55. Computer owners' income was $934 higher in 2003 than in 1998, suggesting income changes may not explain the decline in people purchasing CDs. Like, you got more money, why don't you get off your butt and go buy the CD instead of downloading these illegally? I still have those MP3s. But I think I've more than made up for it with purchases I've made and my subscription to online services to music streaming. I still have hard drives. I still have jump drives. I will still put some on a thumb drive and put it in the car and listen to it. Now,
you shouldn't really say that you're still got all that stuff, because the RIAA can still come and break down our door and come in. And could you imagine? Sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. I was giving some legal advice to Surlana.
So now we're living in an age where you don't need physical media to have music. You don't have to necessarily download anything unless you're downloading an application to your computer, to your phone, to listen to music. You don't have to store music if you choose not to. So while all this was going on with file sharing, online radio was emerging with standalone applications for streaming media. And so now we're living in the age of, well, if you call it Pandora, SoundCloud, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube Music. I appreciate that because, like, when we first got an iPhone, I know it was 4, we were on 4 maybe, we were still having to use iTunes and we would download, it was the MP3, right?
Mm-hmm.
To the phone if you want to hear it.
You buy it and it'd go to your phone.
But we also had a way to take stuff we already had and put it on there too. Because I had your music on. Yeah, didn't I have your music on the phone? I think so. Mm-hmm. But I love that I can have an app now that does this, where I don't have to take up space on my phone for physical music file. Well, digital music files that take up storage space.
Like an MP3 device loading the songs onto it and taking up hard drive space.
I went through 4 of those. I'm telling you, I kill music media so fast. Like, I had who was it that made that? Was it Creative Labs made these really great little MP3 players, they would disconnect from.
Oh, yeah.
You had a
Labs.
battery in one side, and you pulled it out from the battery casing, and it was a USB, and you shoved it in there, got your files.
Yeah.
And I still have one, and it still works, but I don't know where it is. And it, you know why? I don't know where it is. It's so freaking tiny, I can't find it. And it has FM radio on it too, and it fits in the palm of your hand. I mean, it's smaller than a credit card. And when you start making things that portable and that small, they tend to disappear. Can't find them.
I actually like that particular device. It was a good piece of hardware.
The first one I had, it was just a dedicated MP3 player. It was like 512. That's all it held. It wasn't even a gig. And it was blue, and it was the one where you put a AAA in one side, and you shoved it down, you know, like slid together, and you'd pull it apart, so you took the USB into the computer, and it just worked and worked and worked. And I don't know what happened to it, or if I broke it, and if I had just kept it, I could have still been using it today, but it's no longer a thing anymore, because, you know, I got VLC on my phone that I can hook up to a network here at home to listen to some files that you've put together of your music.
Mm-hmm.
Because your stuff isn't really available yet. And I've got Spotify. I've got YouTube Music to look for just music. All that stuff I couldn't find before. I can find it somewhere now. If somebody's got it online somewhere that I can stream. So we're living in a world I wished I had back in the 80s, but we didn't have the internet. We didn't have, you know, gosh, the modems. Remember trying to do anything, download, even legitimate software. Trying to download anything was just such a massive pain.
eBay has those creative players.
Does it?
Yeah.
What are they called? Creative?
Creative MUVO micro.
Creative Labs, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Creative Labs made some good MP3 players. Oh wow, look how ancient it looks now. It looks like somebody's looks like Game Boy. That's the one I had. I had the Zen Microphoto, and it was no good. Look at that. It looks like, what's that thing that made labels? Label maker.
Yeah, label maker.
Yeah. This one looks like a label maker. Oh my God.
You had the one in question that I think that you were talking about.
The very first one.
Nomad.
Maybe. But I had the Zen, and it was no good at all. I just saw it. A version of it. Creative Movo 128. That's what I had, was the 128. Creative Labs. Yeah, and it detached from each other. The buttons were on the stick itself. The blue plastic part was just a housing for the battery.
Mm-hmm.
It was... I love that thing. You know, the first job I took when I moved to Texas was just a crappy little temp job. And I did it so I could purchase this item right here, the Movo. I just needed some scratch. So, but what I want to get into is, now you're an artist. Now, you weren't ever a commercially published artist, but where do you land on, if you were sharing if somebody was starting to share Spaceboy music and you were getting popular, and it's year 2000, and they're sharing your stuff, and you're not getting paid now. I don't know, would you care? I mean, you're not bothered by money now, but...
Well, then, I probably would have been a little bit, mad about somebody sharing my music without my permission. But the way my music is set up now, it's all free. I only ask that the music not be used for commercial use. And if it is going to be used for commercial use, that I'm contacted and an agreement is reached with whomever is wanting to use it for commercial use.
Well, as a musician, did you feel differently back during the day when this was going on? I mean, you didn't have a dog in the fight as a musician at the time, but where would you come down? Like, it's 1999, it's 2001, Napster's at its height. Where would you stand?
As far as downloading personal use, or well, I never did any of that.
Really? Interesting. Maybe that's your musician's integrity there.
No, that's my trying to avoid any kind of IR or RI.
It's so hard to even say the acronym.
RI.
They made it difficult.
From boot jacking my door down, and
I had seen the acronym BPI before, but I never associated it with the British phonographic industry. It sounds so ancient, doesn't it?
And it sounds awfully close to pornographic industry.
Maybe. Well, I thought you'd have some kind of insights there.
Well, I mean, I understand over the, seeing the landscape of the many years of doing the music thing. Kids, they want it free. They can't afford to pay $20 a pop for
I couldn't back then.
A CD. And so they don't want to pay all that money for music. They and they feel like it should be free. And it's probably that mentality is probably because they've had software where they could get the music for free illegally. And so that's where you come down on it.
Well, what really shocked me about doing this research was finding out about them being upset about home taping when it was so not even an issue. They were upset about them not selling music, and it wasn't due to pirating. And that just blew me away. I'm like, well, the thing you really need to worry about is another decade coming. And I didn't realize CD sales actually led to being able to do the MP3. The MP3 was developed long before, and it was separate.
Interesting thing you bring up MP3. There was a site that I originally had my music up on where I would sell CDs, and it was mp3.com, which later got bought out by download.com.
I wonder if you were on it when I was going there.
Now, the thing is that
before I knew you.
The reason why it lost its way or whatever was that at some point they were actually kind of ahead of their time, where you could rip your CDs and upload them to mp3.com and listen to your music anywhere you wanted. But then the music industry got ticked off and said they didn't have the license for it, so eventually they had to stop doing that. And
interesting.
Yeah,
that is a little bit revolutionary.
Mm-hmm.
That is revolutionary, but
out of that, I don't. You get things like Spotify and Pandora and, from these sites where you could listen to music. You buy a subscription base. Mm-hmm. That's the thing nowadays, is to buy a subscription to music and listen to unlimited amount of music, and it's on you can make playlists and all that good stuff. I mean, technically you don't own it like you would have if you had gone into a store and purchased it, but still to have access to all new music and indie music, which you can usually find on Spotify.
Yeah, there is so much obscure, amazing, hidden gems on Spotify, and I would say SoundCloud too. Probably if you spent the time to dig. SoundCloud's really for the independent, but
nice thing about SoundCloud is it is free. I mean, you can buy a purchase a subscription to.
Mm-hmm. You can, but I don't know what the difference is. But if we come back, let's come back around full circle to what John Philip Sousa was worried about. Has the fact that we've got things so accessible, we can record, we can create, we can disseminate music faster, simpler, cheaper, easier than ever. Has it killed music? It's certainly impacted the music industry, but who cares about that, right? is there even anything such as a music industry anymore? Because now you don't have to get discovered if you've got the know-how or the intelligence to teach yourself and buy the software. You can record your own music and put it wherever.
I mean, the technology today provides it much easier for indie artists to upload their music and get it out there, to cut out the middleman. And that's why these record companies, the sign is in the window, is going out of business. So,
Remember that documentary? Was it on Amazon? We watched about Tower Records.
Oh,
that was
yeah.
fascinating.
That was very fascinating.
That showed the rise and fall, which I think all of this that happened affected the record store. So the reason we don't have a record store anymore is we don't need one.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you're going to somewhere like, what do we have here in Houston?
Tower Record. Or, I can't name it.
Half Price Books.
You
go to a place like Half Price Books that still has LPs that people bring in and swap. And I think they may have some cassette tapes. And of course, they're still selling the DVDs, Blu-rays, if you want that. Now, the story of the demise of the CD in these formats, you can also track this at the same time, these same decades, the demise of VHS home taping of TV and movies, and buying DVDs and Blu-rays, and how all that mirrors exactly what's happened in the music technology happened with video technology. That we didn't. There wasn't time to go through both media. I actually had almost too much content for once. Although in the last 30 minutes, I guess that's going to be all up in the air. But I enjoyed this because I learned some things. Like, I didn't realize that LPs had this kind of impact, and I didn't know the whole time I had a cassette tape and cassette tape players that the music industry thought that was a bad thing. Back in the day, I never heard about the home recording thing. It was killing music. I just learned about that recently. I know the 90s was a terrible and also an awesome time. It was terrible for music because music was horrible in the 90s. But here comes the internet. So it also opens up these other possibilities. So it's like the best of times, the worst of times. So,
it goes back to what I'm always saying about businesses not innovating or reading the sign in front of them when customers want a certain thing and the company doesn't stand and deliver for their customers.
Well, we're going through that now with content providers and cable TV. Mm-hmm. We wanted this a la carte thing so long. We finally get it. Then they go find a way to screw that up. Now we got to go find a way to get around their screw up. Now here comes, net neutrality. And here comes well, if you want to see this stuff, you'll go to Disney. If you want to see this stuff, you'll stay with Netflix. And I'm like, they found a way to screw us over one more time. So, what's the answer? We're still not going to get that all in one aggregate we want in one place.
In all fairness, sure, if I'm going to go for one stop for Disney and one stop for something else, I'm not having to pay Oprah for her
own network.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a network that, I'm not watching that kind of programming.
It doesn't interest me. If it interests you, that's cool. I just...
But at the end of the day, we still have a la carte. We only pay for what we watch. But
what I'm saying is we have to go to different places to get what we want to watch. That's the only...
That's fine. The chase set down, I think is a small price to pay in order to get what everybody's been yelling for.
Somebody mentioned in the chat they still have cassette tape. I have a cassette tape, and in the original cassette holder it was sold in of Weird Al's Dare to Be Stupid, and I think it's in one of the kitchen drawers. How's that? And I think I still have a Hall & Oates Greatest Hit cassette
rock and roll,
lurking around here somewhere.
Rock and roll or rock and soul part one,
whatever. Yeah.
Anyway,
it's a good band.
So let's take our break and we'll be right back.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe on the SBU network.
Explore the universe with Spaceboy and Surlana.
Get your game on Spaceboy Universe. Level up with Spaceboy Universe. No quarters, no problems. Play it at Spaceboy Universe.
You are listening to Spaceboy Universe. Here are your hosts, Spaceboy and Surlana.
We are back.
And the phone lines are open.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a toll-free number, which is 833-202-7286. That's 833-202-SBUN. Toll-free. If you want to call in and talk about music, technology, what was your first cassette? What was your first LP? What do you still have? What do you not have? Is your grandma still buying CDs? What's going on? Until then, I would like. Can I mention just a quickie rant? Quick Pinterest rant. What the heck is going on with blogs and websites where I'm just trying to go get a recipe for one thing? You got to have this half a page to a page long narrative story about this soup that I want to make. Oh, I used this soup on winter nights when grandma's toe was infected and it got us through the hard times. I don't care. Show me the recipe. I don't want to go through this scrolling narrative of the soup's origin backstory. Can I just get down to the nitty gritty? I don't want to spend 5 minutes on your website so you can get ad revenue. I want to see your freaking recipe. Okay, I'm done. That's my Pinterest rant.
Okay.
Just wanted to get that out of the way. It's a new trend. I don't know what
that number is 833-202-7296 or 86.
Like, please kill me. 833-202-7286. Yes. I'll put it in chat one more time.
I think Space Sis should call in.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice to hear from her.
Sounds like she's might be coming in this direction next year.
Next year.
Hold on, we've got a caller.
Okay.
Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, it's our marriage counselor. We actually don't need you tonight. We're actually getting along somewhat decently. Or let me put it this way, I can tolerate whatever he's been doing, so.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah. I just flat out don't care tonight. So it's like you can't even engage me.
Oh, goodness. Oh, yeah, I'll tell you.
Well, then tell us.
The music business has just, it's nothing like it used to be.
No, I don't think there is a music business anymore. I think
I
it's
know,
gone.
Me neither.
And is that a good thing or not? I don't know.
I don't think it is. Because, when I listen to music, it lifts me up. And I love my music. And well, you know what they say, music is a universal language.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about the world we're living in now? Has it changed how you listen to music? Do you still listen to music in your old ways, or have you found different ways to access it, or is it, you're still listening to your LPs, or?
Are you still listening to your wax cylinders?
I don't have any of my old LPs anymore.
No, but yeah.
Now we got a whole bunch from his baby sister from his dad, and oh my goodness, some of them are really old.
Yeah, they're from the 20s and 30s.
There's Bob.
Well, I have that
stuff.
I have that stuff, Bev, but not physical music media. I have that exact same stuff you're talking about in sheet music from my parents.
Oh, wow.
Turn of the century to the 70s. They cut off buying
back
sheet
in the
music.
day, that was worth a lot, to collectors. Not anymore.
Well, I know. And I remember the 45s.
Mm-hmm, that's what I had.
Oh my! And if you ask a kid nowadays about a record album, they have no clue what you're talking about.
I'm not
They
too sure
might.
about that.
They might.
Well, they're still scratching out there, so
Yeah. Well, it's like I posted earlier that
DJs,
to look for that analog sound, which is a lot richer sound than what you can get from digital.
Right.
So that's why
it's
a lot
a
of
rich
groups,
sound, but
and
it's
a lot
not
of-
necessarily quality enhanced sound. It's an experience that you want to have.
That's why a lot of guitar players and bass players are going back to the tube amps because you get a fuller sound out of it than what you could out of the digital.
Absolutely right.
And when I can remember too, when we were kids, there wasn't no FM. It was all AM.
Yeah, we had FM was around.
Yeah, but not back when we were teenagers.
Oh yeah, it was.
Oh, was it? I never listened.
Yeah,
to
it was the 60s. It was in the early stages.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it wasn't as popular. We had CKLW in our area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
CKLW. Oh.
Was the big radio station in our area, and then in the 70s is when FM really took off. But I remember back, when I got my first car, I had to buy an FM adapter.
Yeah.
To plug into my radio.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
I have a memory of seeing an 8-track cassette in the car that my parents had. I was really young, but I don't remember touching it. I remember seeing them.
Yeah, my
8-tracks are great, but they get the number one song a lot of times would be split between 2 tracks. It's like
Well, I can remember repairing a lot of cassette tapes. The old ink pen, pencil, or Q-tip.
And tape.
Yep, and tape. Yep.
No, my brother had the original CCR on reel-to-reel.
Wow.
And it was a realistic reel-to-reel player he bought. It was right before he went in the Navy. That was in 69.
Reel had a long history too.
My mom and dad's old reel-to-reel.
But shoot, I remember as a kid, we used to get records in the mail. I belonged to a group as a kid.
Yeah.
They were on plastic, real flimsy plastic, square, and they were 45s. You play them on there, and then you had then the Monkees and Josie and the Pussycats and Archie's were on the cereal boxes when we were kids.
Right.
God, I remember that too.
And you cut them out and then play them on your record.
You had to put like a penny on it to keep it down.
Yep. I remember those.
Yeah.
I remember those.
Yep.
Those
were the good old days.
Yeah, when I drove my Chevy to the levee and the levee was dry.
Oh, yeah.
I hate that song.
I love that song.
It was 72.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
well.
song was the number one song in
I was
1972 because I was born that year. I don't know why. I can't stand that song.
I like
Yeah, I was born in 60, but
I was born in 58. But now, and I like the good old time rock and roll, good old country. The country music nowadays isn't country to me. It's more like rock and roll.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, modern country is terrible.
It is.
It is.
It is.
I hate to say it, but yeah, I have to agree.
I'm more of a Patsy Cline, Conway 20.
Yes.
Conway 20.
Oh, yes. 20.
Is that the country version of like 50 Cent? I mean,
Anyway.
Well, it's like, going to Christmas here. To me, the 40s and 50s were some of the best.
Oh, yeah. And then that West Texas country sound I like a lot, too.
Oh, yeah. Bob Wales
and the twang in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I know
torture
what
to
you're
me.
saying there.
That's pure torture. Which is weird because I grew up in Louisiana. You'd think I'd be predisposed to like it, but I don't.
Zydeco?
All country music. modern, old, classic. I just can't. Why do you say Zydeco? I was born in North Louisiana. We had about as much to do with Cajun as Arkansas. No, it had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
Oh, Earl Scrubs. Oh, man. There was a good old boy.
That's going back a few years.
I know. I grew up on that kind of music. Johnny Cash.
Actually, my daughter was dancing on my knee when he was singing. He did a concert, school close to us, and I had her on my knee, front row, bouncing her.
Well, I remember going and seeing Little Jimmy Dickens at Central Junior High. Do you remember Little Jimmy Dickens?
That's before my time.
Yeah. It's Bluebird of Paradise Don't Fly Up Your Snoot or something like that.
No. May the bird of
bird of
paradise fly up your nose.
Yeah. No, I was thinking of Ben Carter. Sorry. Ben Carter.
Oh, I was going to say try Coulter.
Yeah. He was a country singer that did as drunk.
Now, see, as far as rock and roll, I liked Aerosmith, Aerosmith, early Kiss.
Were you buying that back in the day, like on CD or cassette tape, or you just liked it from the radio?
Oh, no.
Oh, no, I had, the Bee Gees, I had all their albums.
Yeah.
I had all of Osmond's. I had Journey Infinity.
Oh, that's okay.
I had quite the collection.
Now, mine goes from Led Zeppelin.
Oh, I love Led Zeppelin.
Three Dog Night.
Yep.
God, I got so many of them.
Def Leppard.
Nah,
the 80s.
I wasn't a big Leppard fan. Yeah.
I mean, it'll never be like it was.
Boston, Kansas.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, Kansas. Styx. We saw Styx in Kansas in concert. Woohoo! We saw,
Styx blew away Kansas.
Yes.
Hands down.
We saw Cooper and Nugent in concert. Oh, and Willie Nelson and Waylon Jennings.
No, we didn't see Waylon.
No, but I mean, that's back in the day.
Oh.
We did see Willie.
Yeah, we saw Willie, but...
At what county fair was it?
Fulton
County Fair.
So here's my story, my musical story I like to share is that, being from Texas, my dad was playing at a bar. It was just with a group of guys and, playing guitar, and in walks Willie Nelson, and he sat down and he ended up playing with them. And so they had,
I believe it. A little easy.
Always.
Oh, my God.
Also, another kind of interesting musical thing is that it always seems to end up at a bar, but my mom was at a bar, and in walks this guy, and he says, hey, you want to come back? I've got a concert here in Georgia that I got to get back to, but I've got a limo outside, and we could go that way, and it ends up...
Sounds skeevy.
Well, and she was reluctant to go with him, but she ended up, he said, at least let me send you home in my limo. And it ended up being Jagal, God, what is it?
Cool.
The guy from the Jagal's band, yes.
Lead singer?
The lead singer, yes. So, little bits of musical history.
Well,
but yes, Willie, he's real big on things like that. He getting new people started and just sitting down jamming. That's how they started.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, him and Waylon go way back together. I know he took it really hard when Waylon died.
Yeah, Waylon and the Boys.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
Willie and Waylon and the Boys.
My musical tastes have been changing lately, and it's so strange and maybe obscure. I can't even talk to anybody because nobody knows what I'm talking about. So.
I think that
I've covered a lot of years.
Oh, yeah. Well, Bobby Seger years. Oh, man.
Yeah, I like the Seeger.
I love Bobby Seeger. That good old time rock and roll.
Seeger, Jay Giles.
Yeah.
C. Miller.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, Jay Giles' best album is Blow Your Face Out. I'm sorry.
Jackson Brown, the Eagles.
I like Freeze Frame.
Jackson. Oh, Eagles. You what?
Freeze Frame from Jay Giles.
You like
the Eagles supposedly have toppled Michael Jackson's Thriller for best-selling album from their...
I heard something about that.
Yeah, 1971 to 1975 best greatest hits. I do like the Eagles. They've got not every single thing they've ever produced. I mean, maybe there's a core 6 to 10 songs that I like, but, you know.
Well, it's like one of my top bands was Doobie Brothers.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
They had a lot of good songs.
They did.
Back in the day, they rivaled the Eagles.
Well, and Three Dog Night.
Yeah, that's another one of my favorites.
Oh, yeah.
And Santana.
I mean, oh, yes.
Evil Woman. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I did a lot of partying back in the rock and roll days, and I grew, you know, Aerosmith, Alice Cooper. I mean, oh, my gosh.
I'm an old Cooper head. That's my first album. That was it was a Christmas gift. It's Muscle of Love for my aunt.
Oh, yeah.
It came from my aunt.
Yeah. She's, what, 9 months older? Or, yeah, she's 9 months older than Bob. Oh, gosh.
Lots of good music there.
Yeah, there was. I mean, there was a lot of music growth on a lot of areas back in them days, you know.
But
you go from the doo-wop, and then you go into the 60s style.
Yep.
And 70s started the hard rock, and then on up, you know, into rap.
Oh, I hate rap.
But, you know, everybody do their own.
I didn't even notice music until 1980.
What was that band?
80s was great.
CCR, Gordon Lightfoot.
Oh, yeah.
See, now that's torture to me. That's torture.
What, CCR?
Yes.
Oh, that's good music.
Oh, I can't.
I like
Gordon
that stuff.
Lightfoot?
Yeah.
No.
Oh, I liked what he did with his, Gordon Lightfoot with his song, Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
Mm-hmm.
All the proceeds he made off of it went to the,
survivors.
Families that, you know, the family survivors of the sailors. That was cool.
Yeah, did you know Beatles sued him over that song?
Why?
It was one of the intros they said was a rip-off of one of their songs. I can't remember which one, but...
Oh, for good grief.
I think they lost, but...
I'm going to have to go back and look at that.
Another music. Yeah, I just remember that. It's like, man, at the time, it's like, man, it's one of my favorite songs I heard the Beatles do. What? I can't remember which song it was, to be honest, but...
You'll have to Google it, Dave.
That's many brain cells ago.
Yeah. A long time brain cells ago.
All right, guys. Well, we're heading to the ending of our program, so I know parting is such
sweet. Anybody off.
No, it's fine. Nobody's calling in.
Oh, I thought SB sister was calling in. I apologize.
No, you have to badger her a little harder.
Yeah, she has to be arm twisted.
Hey, call. Call your bro.
Thanks, Bob.
You're welcome.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, gosh. He's getting you in trouble, Space Boy.
Oh,
I'm good at that.
I don't need anybody to get me in trouble.
No, he doesn't.
I do a good job doing it
Same
all
way
myself.
with Bob. Bob doesn't need anyone to get him in trouble.
Yeah.
Trouble follows him.
Dennis Toulouse's got my song, so...
Trouble follows him.
I ain't going to say what it is on the air, but yeah, it's my song.
Be nice.
I am.
Give Dino a big hug for me.
Well, you guys take care. Well, yeah, I can't tell later.
We'll give Dino and Elliot hugs.
All right.
Love you guys.
You too. Bye-bye.
We love you.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Saying goodbye is hard, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, they're reminiscing in chat about, did y'all get Video Hits one, VH1. I remember VH1 when it was good, like when MTV was good.
I'm sure my sister will vouch for, what was it, Night Flight.
Oh, God, Night Flight was so good. We could recreate Night Flight now, but I think, the stuff that we watch is kind of like that. The meme, mix-select things we watched were reminiscent of that, but it was more of a cultural thing. It was sort of interesting, sort of, you have to experience Night Flight. In fact, you can get a subscription to the old broadcast somehow. I don't know if it's like on Roku or
I've seen it on Facebook.
But I don't have the wherewithal to do that, but I would love to do that. So I just found the actual Yamaha Electone organ that my dad had through a portion of my childhood, where I learned, quote unquote, how to play music, which I would argue that I don't know how. But I just thought it was interesting. I actually found the exact model on eBay, and it was only $99. And yeah, I know he paid way more for that thing, but what cracked me up is the buyer who is selling it for pre-owned. He says, "This product used and kept for a couple years without touching in the basement." What does it crack me up? We didn't touch it in the basement. No, they kept an organ in the basement and they didn't touch it. So, okay. I don't know why that made me cry.
So, next week, I mentioned while Surlana was trying to make her way back to the microphone, we will be on the air.
We just don't know what we're going to talk about yet.
It's one of those contentious things.
We'll hash it out tomorrow, maybe.
So anyway, just look out there and we'll post it somewhere. But let's see what else here. Of course, join us on the 15th when we'll have Robert Sullivan IV.
Actual guest.
Yes, and we're trying to get our good friend of the show, Patrick Sporer, back on.
He may not have good access yet. I don't know.
I mean,
after
the Hurricane Michael thing, and
so we'll wait and see. I know he had access, some issues trying to access the internet because it was down.
Mm-hmm.
The companies just didn't have the access back because of Hurricane Michael in Florida. But we can talk about Krampus, but I don't know that it's going to take 3 hours to do. That fascinates me. Isn't there like a festival in, is it Germany or Romania, one of those countries where it's a winter festival and they have all these Krampus-like characters, people dressed up, as strange beasts. I've seen it before. I don't know what it's called, but it's like a winter thing, and it's very weird, but interesting. I don't even know how to look that up. So, you have any final thoughts there?
No, I just it looks like Patrick sent me an email about 1:00 today. It looks like his normal, updates and stuff.
Real quick, congratulations to Bev and Bob. This Wednesday, they will have been married 32 years.
Wow. That is a long time. And on that magical note, say goodnight, Surlana.
Nah.
Spaceboy Universe is hosted by Spaceboy and Surlana. Executive producer is Surlana. Associate producer is Leanne Cordes. Music production is Spaceboy of SpaceboyMusic.com. Special thanks goes out to Leanne K, K28, Dino, Solar Blue Raven, Patrick Sporer, Bob and Beverly N. This has been a Spaceboy Universe production. Support the universe by exploring Spaceboy Universe with Spaceboy and Surlana. Sweet dreams, Space Cadets.
Hi, I'm Spaceboy.
And I'm Surlana.
And you're listening to Spaceboy Universe
on the Paranormal UK Radio Network.